2, and we are live.
Right.
This is Brad with Paintball Therapy, and I have the pleasure of speaking with Ryan from Xfactor, coach of Xfactor. And basically, Ryan, how I like to start off is tell me how you got involved with paintball in the first place.
Okay. So I guess just going through, I met a friend. He's a couple years older than me. I think I was about like 5th grade, 6th grade, something around there. And he had a paintball magazine. It was just a Smart Parts catalog is all he had. The one with all the barrels and the grips, and it was all the shockers and the 4x4 and the turbo and just the different colors. And I got a hold of that, and I was just fascinated by the guns, just like super, just looked at it all the time, and I just wanted a paintball gun so bad. I was, in 6th grade, and I just kept coming to my mom, and she was at the time very anti-gun, which for a Texan, kind of a little strange, but
right.
Not the case now. I think they got quite the gun safe now, but at the time she wasn't about it. And just kind of through attrition over the next year or two, I finally convinced her to let me get a gun, paintball gun. My dad did as well, and kind of started, playing. We went out in the backyard and played for the first time. And then after that, just kind of started hitting some of the local fields in Dallas, Texas, just playing out in the woods, just pure rec ball, father son, just going around the woods for a couple of years.
And what attracted you to the airball side of things? Because there was a natural progression from the woods to airball, and then it took off for you.
Yeah, definitely. So I guess how that worked is I was just for a couple of years there. This is probably late 90s. It was just every couple of months, every 6 months, me and my dad would go to a field. And then we lived in a suburb of Dallas, but kind of on the outskirts. We had some property, like 20 acres, kind of on the outskirts there. And we were driving home through the country, and I saw a sign for a paintball field. And it just said Fort Paintball. So we drove down this dirt road, and we got down there, and it was nothing but a trailer. No field, just a sign. So I went out there, and I kind of met, it was a husband and wife at the time, and they were like, "Oh yeah, we're going to start a paintball field. Like, it's a great idea." And I guess the husband had been paintballing once, and that's all they knew. And they had a sign, he'd been once, they wanted to start a business. And so I was like, well, I know a little bit about paintball. I think I was probably in like 8th grade at the time. And I kind of helped them build this paintball field, and just kind of building. We didn't have any airball or anything like that at the time. So just kind of some mounds fields, some barrel fields, and kind of had this like pretty terrible paintball field. And then some of like the local established airball teams kind of realized there was another field, and they started coming out there, and it was kind of a blank canvas. There's a lot of property, and they started building some actual concept fields. And so the hyperball field that's in the Badlands now, that's still there, they brought down a map of it, and we built it out of like metal barrels because we didn't have any hyperball. Kind of mapped it out, and I played that field like 3 times a week for years. So now when we go play that tournament, it's nostalgic for me, even though I never played hyperball like on that field like a lot of the guys out there had. I grew up on that same layout, so there's nostalgia there. And so I just started playing. The local teams were there, and I just at one point that was like the one field I played on, and I got a bunch of old dudes said, "Hey, we have a tournament next weekend. Do you want to play with us?" And the average age of these guys was probably like I would say it's probably like 28 now, but when I was 15, so I thought they were like super old, right? Yeah. So they handed me like a thing of a sheet of paper with codes on it, and they're just meet us here. And so I went out and played my first tournament the next weekend. It was the PAX, 5-man. It was the big in Texas back then. And we did fairly well, you know, and I was just a young kid. They were old. They just sent me to the 50,
Right.
point in, point out, and didn't really know exactly what I was doing, but I had fun. And from there, you know, they started practicing at the field and I practiced with them. I did that for maybe 2 or 3 tournaments. And then I don't know if do you remember the Garcia brothers? They played for
Yes.
Oakland in Philly.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So at the time, they were on Texas Storm.
Okay.
And and they might have just went to Oakland. I think Bob might have just picked up Gerald.
Yeah.
Storm practiced at our field, and so I practiced against them. And they got it in their head that they wanted to start a kids team. And it was kind of, at that point, there was no kids teams in Texas. It just didn't exist. And I think maybe they kind of watched the success of Dynasty or something and thought that they could do the same.
Yep.
And I was kind of like their first kid that they kind of plucked up. So they kind of stole me off of my 5-man team full of older guys. And they had another kid or two that were out in the Dallas area. And then they had an open tryout where people drove in. And at the time, like, they were the only Texas players playing pro at the time when Gerald was in Oakland. So they had a lot of clout. So when they said that they were starting a kids team, people were kind of excited about it. And so I think Grayson Goff, who played on Xfactor for forever up until I think retired last year, he drove up and tried out, and he made the team. And so me and him were on that team together. It was called B-Slap Factory. It's pretty terrible name, but
nope. I know the name. I know the name.
Yeah. And so we started playing some local tournaments, and I hadn't played in anything national yet. And then what happened was before they played for Storm, they started a team called Texas Havoc, which was a national 10-man team.
Yep.
So this is 2003. And those guys needed some players to go to a 10-man, and I was 16, and they kind of asked Rich and Gerald if they could have me on loan. And they said it was cool until we were ready to start playing national tournaments that I could play with them.
Yep.
And so I went to Chicago 2003 was the first national event I played. And I was playing with that in the novice division.
Yep.
And we made it to the finals. And it was a round robin 4 teams. So I think it was us, Mama's Boys, Justice, and maybe Mantis was the other team. And
yep. Sounds about right.
Yeah. So that was a blast. I think at that point I was in kind of over my head a little bit for that first tournament. But it was definitely a really cool learning experience.
Right.
Yeah. And then the next one, I think was the Philly event of 10-man. And I was definitely like more comfortable then, playing well, made the finals again, and played Mama's Boys, was the first game. And it was a really crazy game. It was back and forth. It was on a ton of like old school videos, like 300 feet per second and stuff of like I wound up doing like a flip over the snake, bunkering a guy, and it got bunkered. Just crazy back and forth game.
Yeah.
And won that game, and then matched up against Justice to win the tournament. And I was the big JT pyramid field. I don't remember that. And so I went up there off the break and super excited. And I don't know if anyone like that wasn't around back then had any idea like the size of that bunker and the stuff. And I thought we were good. I thought we were going to win the event. And next thing you know, I start looking at back. Everything gets quiet. And I realized I'm by myself in this giant temple that was broken up because it was modular.
Right.
I kind of stood up to take a peek, and one of the guys from Justice came through and put his barrel up to bunker me. He didn't realize what he was doing, but it came under my flex.
Oh.
Blew my face. And so you probably can't see it here, but I have a paintball scar.
Still have a scar.
A scar, like a round ball on my face. And so that was interesting. Coming home at the airport, that was going. My mom, I thought she was going to make me quit. Right. But that was that. And that was 10-man. And I loved it. But being a young kid, and I definitely had a commitment to the Garcia brothers because they kind of were supporting me and all that stuff. And so the next tournament, World Cup was coming around, and we decided to enter as B-Slap. and it was Division III. It was the first ever Division III X-ball tournament. So up until World Cup, they only had Division I and II.
Yep.
So we entered Division III, a massive field, double elimination, and we wound up making the finals again. So it was 3 times in a row, 3 national events, and made the finals in all of them. So I thought this shit was easy,
Right?
but no, it's not. I learned
No,
that.
no. But yes, I completely understand.
We matched up with a team called Pag Factory, who is better known now as Edmonton Impact.
Okay.
So that was kind of interesting. And so and Bart was playing on the team back then, and
Wow.
boys and all that stuff. And
Yep.
they beat us in the finals. And so and that was kind of my start to national level paintball. So it was kind of fun. That's how I got onto airball. So
Wow.
yeah.
Wow. That's actually very interesting. Because there's kind of connections there that I didn't even know from Chicago or to the last 10-man, because I don't remember when the last national 10-man happened, but it was at the introduction of X-ball.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it was 03 or 04.
They made it through 04, I think.
Yep. So 04. Yep. Now, another question: how did you get from the Garcias to Xfactor?
So I guess the next step was I played with B-Slap for I guess another 2 seasons, and we played a little bit of 7-man, a little bit of X-ball, kind of bounced around, and we're playing Division II, and we were better than, we weren't like a force or anything, a couple 4th places, a couple 3rd places, but we never made it back to a final. And it kind of got to the point where some of our talent on the team was kind of there was a disparity there, and then some was and the whole track was trying to go pro at that point, and a lot of good players like went through that team, and some like Sean Saucedo, who plays for Diesel now, played on that team with me. Jell Stewart, who coaches AC Diesel, played on that team after I left. So there was a lot of good players, but it just wasn't, we're trying to, kind of get up the ranks a little bit. And we practiced XFactor as kind of who our sparring partner was a lot of the time. And at that time, they were Division III, we were Division II for the most of it. And then during the 2005 year is kind of when the Garcia brothers were kind of like, all right, you guys are, me and Grayson, you guys are ready to make the step and make pro, but the team isn't really ready to kind of jump divisions yet.
Right.
So what we did is we started going with Gerald when they were on Philly to the American practices and practice.
Okay. Yep.
And at that time, the Philly guys, a lot of the old guys were still on the team, but kind of on their way out, but they were still having those roster spots. And
Frank, Spesh,
Todd Hugo.
Yep. Minnesota dude.
There for a little bit. So kind of, and I don't know how much, I was young at the time. I was 17, but the way it was put to me was, come practice with us, and when a spot opens up, it'll be, you have a good shot at it, right?
Yep, absolutely.
So that was kind of, and so I'm in high school and I'm flying, doing the Philly practices. I'm staying in the house with everybody. Living in a house with Eric Dearman at his prime is one of the more crazy experiences than anyone can ever have.
Yes.
And as that's going on, I'm kind of just waiting, where it's going to happen.
Right.
And this is at the end of 2005. And at the time, a lot of this is kind of detailed in that BKT documentary that Dan Napoli did.
Yep.
But essentially, all of us Texas young guys had been really close, even though we're on different teams since the early 2000s. Kind of like I said, when I was playing with all those old dudes, we started the BKT thing, and so we're all on different teams. And we kind of had our own little crew together.
Exactly.
And so Brett Cohen was one of those guys, and Brett had left Xfactor, where he started playing with, to go to Infamous in 2005. And he wasn't getting a lot of playing time, and he wasn't super happy. But when we were in Philly practicing with the Americans, we were practicing against Infamous. And so we were kind of sparring off with each other. And then kind of at that practice, Brett kind of like, made me aware of his concerns of thinking he might want to go back and play with Xfactor. His little brother played on Xfactor still. So the end of that season happened, and Brett kind of approached me and Grayson as well and said, hey, look, like, I don't really know exactly what you guys have going on with Philly and if that's going to happen or not this offseason, but I'm going back to Xfactor. I think you guys should too. And I think if we all do this, we can go pro together as a team. And I was leaving for college and leaving Dallas to the Austin area.
Okay.
And San Antonio, and Xfactor is out of San Antonio, which is much closer.
Yep.
And I knew that, like, when I started college, it would be harder to play for a team, on the other side of the country as well. So we did it. We kind of made the leap and went over to Xfactor at the beginning of 2006. And it was more challenging than I thought it would be because I didn't really we just had so many guys,
Right.
and I'm sure people will. This happens all the time on teams still, but I think I was number like 15 on the roster. And this is, X-ball with halves, and we ran 3 lines, at times, but still that's a lot of bodies.
Right.
Yeah, it's a lot of bodies, a lot of good players, so it was a struggle for playing time at certain times. And then other times it was good, but it definitely, it was cool because we were all, best friends. We had been best friends for a long time, and we played, I think, maybe 3 tournaments as Division I that year, and then we got asked to go pro in the middle of 2006.
Wow, that's the interesting thing is how so many people can connect with your story in multiple parts and then get lost in the excessively fast succession of success that you've had because you rapidly rose through it, even though it was a considerable amount of time. The amount that you've moved in such a short time is impressive.
Yeah, it went pretty quick back then, I guess, from 3 years from playing my first national event to playing a pro tournament. But back then it felt like an eternity.
Right.
It did, and I guess it probably takes a little bit longer these days, and maybe that's because there is like 18 different divisions, and I don't know, but it is it's definitely a grind, and it's kind of, I look at it now that my playing career wasn't near as long as my coaching career has been now, but I still for the longest time associated myself as more of a player. But now my coaching career has eclipsed that, many times over.
There have been player coaches, especially in the older times, the older eras. Was there ever a time that you were a player coach, or did you just stop playing, but your brain was so good with the guys that you had that you knew how to use them?
So this is, I guess that's part 1 of the story, the trip to pro. Part 2 is a bit more complicated. But I'll just, if we got time, I'll tell the story.
I'm all ears. I'd love to hear it.
Yeah, I'll be perfectly honest. So, so when we went pro, we had a big roster, right? And so we're all kind of fighting each other over playtime. And we had 2 teams in 7-man, they're semi-pro teams because the pro division was locked. Yep. So we're playing those. And I think we won like 3 out of 5 that year, and Aftermath won the other 2.
Yeah.
And the X-Ball, we actually did pretty well, like right out of the gate. So we made Sunday our first event, and we beat Naughty Dogs and Strange and lost to the Russians. And so and then we played the Russians again on Sunday. So the only team we lost to at our first pro event was the Russians. And
right,
this was a similar Russians that we have today. It was a nasty Russian Legion back then. And so we kind of hit the ground running. Everything, there's a lot of success. We were winning tournaments in 7-man. We were competitive, and X ball, and then the second full year we won an X ball tournament, and we made the finals at another. So the team had a ton of success just right out of the gate. Me personally, I was battling a couple things. I was in school, and so I missed a tournament because of that. Because I had a professor just basically straight up tell me like, "Hey, if you miss this test, you're getting a 0." And my parents I'm very happy and very grateful. They paid for my college, and I'm very grateful for that. But they also told me at the same time, if you fail a class, that stops.
Yep.
So I was kind of having to battle that, like, I'm going to miss this tournament but I
It's your life.
And I knew at the time, the event before that, I just got a starting spot on. We tried 3 lines early, and we got away from that after an event or two. And so we literally had 15 guys on the roster, and only 10 played. So we'd fly everyone there, and you got 5 guys in the pits whose jobs were just to coach and yell out people's positions. So I only worked my way out of that, got a starting spot. And the very next tournament after that is when the professor said, no go.
Yeah.
So it was just kind of a struggle, right? And so, so I'm doing that. And then in 7-man, I always felt that I was a better 7-man. I was a better 7-man player. I think it has to do a little bit, it was more of a mental game. Mm-hmm. And that's probably why I excel at 10-man more now too, as well. Just got more time to think, right? And so I think that's where sometimes I'm able to kind of excel. And basically at the end of the 7-man season, I was battling the playing time in the X-ball side the whole time. We decided we're just going to do one pro team for the 2008 season. And I played really well all year in 7-man, and I kind of thought I was going to be on that team, and kind of, came to conclusion that wasn't going to be the case probably. So I was upset about that. And back in that, and I think I had a couple of things going wrong for me. And I think people should, if you ever find yourself in a similar situation young, there's lessons to learn from, because I kind of use it as an excuse to myself and kind of handicap myself, thinking that because I was one of the last guys to come on to Xfactor, I was number 15, that was part of the reason I wasn't playing. Because you have your core of your team, right? And any team out there, you go to a new team, there's a core.
Right.
And sometimes guys are going to get the benefit of the doubt that have been there longer. Yeah. And there's some truth to that. But the fact of the matter is, if you're out there shooting 5 guys every point, you're going to play.
Right.
And I wasn't mature enough at the time to realize that. And so I kind of played the blame game a little bit, made excuses of why I wasn't playing sometimes when I thought I should be. And the fact of the matter, I wasn't doing enough. I wasn't out there shooting enough people, or I would be playing, right? No one's going to lose a tournament because, there's 15 other guys, 14 of them say, hey, that guy's shooting everybody, put him on the field. And I kind of just didn't know that at the time. I didn't do more. I was going to practices, just riding with everybody else, getting there at the same time, leaving at the same time. I wasn't doing anything extra to fight, to earn that
for
spot.
that.
I wasn't showing up early. I wasn't doing drills on other day. And we actually practiced every weekend back then. So that's probably why Xfactor got so good so fast.
Right.
But I'm sure there were things I could have done more, and I didn't. And so that kind of made me kind of want to hang it up a little bit. The other side of it is I had a long-term girlfriend in college that I now know, because I'm a little bit mature, had a drinking problem. When you're in college and people are blacking out all the time, it's kind of like, oh, they just party and they party a little bit. They don't know the stuff.
Yep. Too hard.
Too hard. Well, my girlfriend liked to party hard. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, that didn't stop because we're in college. It's party every weekend when I would go out of town to tournaments. And so I was always dealing with the stress of what was going on back home while I was at events. And so it kind of like, in retrospect, I would have kept playing.
Right.
But I couldn't handle the two things of not being able to, fight for the playing time that I thought that I was owed, which wasn't
Yeah.
the case, and kind of trying to the paintball at the time was the biggest passion in my life, but I thought a girl was be better, and of course, that relationship didn't work out,
Right. Right.
not even close, but so yeah,
But it's really important. It's extremely valuable. I was talking to actually one of my team guys, in his young 20s about this very thing that, paintball in relationships can be stressed. Life in relationships can be stressed. And there can be moments where relationships are tested with paintball. You know what I mean? And you were very vulnerable and open there and said, I let a relationship, now that I look back now, I should have said something and dealt with it. But it's kind of those exchanges and those open moments that make you special, and why I want to learn more, because you've always been open with me and I appreciate that. So I know people will connect with that for sure.
Definitely. And I think it's like, obviously it's not like I'm so proud that this happened, but
No, no, right. I've been there too. I've done that,
if it helps like some other, 19-year-old kid out there in the same situation, be it in paintball or anything else, like I'd rather do that, like make it worth something. Because for me, it's a big regret of my life that I stopped playing,
Right.
and it's a huge regret. And one of those things that you never know, those guys that were also struggling for playtime with me, those guys went on to have big careers with Xfactor, and then some of them up until a year ago, and
Right.
that, easily could have been me, but I kind of crumbled, and took the easy road out, at the time. So it's a big regret. And it's for something that was probably the biggest passion in my life, still is, to complete. I had to close off, I
Right.
lived racing in college, like all the way through. And I stopped watching tournaments. I stopped. And these guys were all still my best friends, so we partied together every weekend. Like me and all the Xfactor guys, all the
Right.
parties at my apartment. Teams would fly in for practice, and like they'd stay with us, and
Yep.
I wouldn't go watch practice. Like I wouldn't watch the tournaments, and it's just one of those things. Like I just like felt like I had to completely turn away from it, or I wouldn't, be drugged back in, or what it might be. It was just kind of this like battle that I was fighting, almost like it was I don't want to compare it to like an addiction or something, but I just like, I was just kind of soured on it.
It hurt.
Yeah.
It hurt is what it is, because I feel like I connect on another level with that when I stopped playing in Chicago under negative circumstances. I felt like I had what I wanted, but I wasn't able to do with it what I wanted. And in that situation, you were torn between the sport that you love and the person that you cared deeply about. And it speaks volumes to your character that you made the wrong decision in hindsight, but that you wanted to follow your heart. And again, you can't really fault a person for following that. But now, is that what has fueled this? What I see and what's obvious to me is this passion for coaching.
Yeah. So I guess what happened there is that I just, I was really close with all the guys for a long time. And I played, here and there. So I played a pro 7-man with Xfactor in 2009.
Yeah.
And, we'd play, occasionally, I go out with the guys, but for
Right.
the most part, I was completely closed off. And the team definitely went through a down period, in 2000, late 8, 9, and 10. They were struggling. Alex had to take a step back for a while and handle some personal stuff, and the team was just kind of hanging on by a string. And I think at the end of 2010, Alex came back. Archie had gone to Dynasty, had come back from Dynasty.
Yep.
And they were kind of reforming and getting all back together and kind of like trying to do everything right. And the team was kind of out for redemption, if you will, of kind of, rising to the top and winning, tournaments to just being all of a sudden they're a bottom, 5 team.
Yep.
And so the Archie kind of reached out to me and said, hey, at the time, every other team has a coach, but we don't. We're trying to kind of do it, in the pits ourselves, player coach or anything like that. And
right.
And they said, would you want to come? And it kind of and just come and help out. It wasn't necessarily like, hey, come and call the plays and
right.
practices and do all that stuff. It's just like, do you think you could come and help? So I took him up on it, and I think it was maybe Chicago, so it's kind of a return to that's where my first national event was, and it was kind of coming back to inform. So this is, I think, 2011, maybe the second event of the year, and mainly spent most of the time on the sidelines, kind of sideline coaching and kind of more observing than, I'd been out of the game for a while. So I didn't really want to like step in. And at that time too, I was a peer, and that's it's different now, even though I'm still more or less a peer, but I was very much a peer at that time. And not only I was, most of the guys at that time, almost all of them were guys I played with, and not about half of them were guys that played over me, and half of guys were maybe that you'd say played, under me.
Yeah.
But it's hard for me to take those guys and tell them, hey, I know best. Not only were you better than me when I played, but so I haven't been here for 4 years. And so that took some time. And so I did that event. We did okay. I think we went 2-2, missed the cut. And the very next event was a pro 7-man. And I would say I did very little actually coaching at the first one, as far as more so just calling out positions on the sidelines and that kind of stuff. And going to the 7-man and they say, hey, can you come again? We'd like your help. And showed up, and I said, okay, well, I can scout, that would be helpful, especially in 7-man. Like it was definitely, you only have 1 or 2 breakouts in 7-man there. And scouting was huge. And so I'm scouting and came back with scout report first game, went well. They did went out, and it got to about the third, point. And I kind of showed them the scout, and they said, well, what do you think we should do? And I was like, you want me to tell you what to do? And they're like, yeah. So from there, it's just kind of turned into a coach, I guess, mid tournament and started doing that. And, I went to all the rest of the X-Ball events, all the rest of the 7-man events, and definitely as a coach role. And there was, friction there at first. And mostly now, cause I wasn't very good, it's a learning experience. I definitely didn't go in with the attitude that I know better than all you, but I made mistakes. I called wrong plays. I blew the horn at the wrong time. I'm sure it was a learning curve.
Absolutely.
But we did well ish. I think we went 2-2 every tournament that year. And this is 2011. Yeah. And we're an okay team, middle of the pack, average team. And just slowly but surely, got better at my craft at coaching. And then in 2012, finally won my first event coaching, was a 7-man and DC. I think we had a pretty tough, had to go through a good damage team, other stuff, and we got a big win there. And it was good. And so I think I thought that I had this is more open book stuff in retrospect. I thought at that point that I had proven myself as a coach, and that I was shouldn't be questioned or anything like that. I just won a tournament. The team hadn't won a tournament in 5 years. we finished the season, and we got Alex had a call from the late great Paul Richards.
Yep.
Wanted to come over, and I guess what Paul had said to Alex, and I know at this point I respect it and I know exactly what he said. He said, "Hey, I've been watching you guys, and if I came over and helped coach, I think that we could win, 1 or 2 matches, tournament."
Right.
And Paul at that time was the man. He was coaching Damage. He kind of got pushed out of that situation. And I think just because he had, Damage might have been looking for a different demeanor or just
Right.
sometimes be more comfortable. Paul was going through some health issues at the time that, I think made him a bit, he was on some serious medication. So
Right.
his mind was fully there, but he was tired a lot, I guess is the best way to put it. And so I took offense to him coming over and saying, "Hey, I think y'all could win another match or 2." Because I was like, well, you know what I mean? That's like,
yeah, you just did. I just did it.
Yeah, exactly. But and so it was a long off season of guys, the team itself was torn of, we just won a tournament. Should we bring another guy? But at the same time, like, this guy is he's a legend. He's a proven one of the best coaches of all time.
Yeah,
I'm probably the best coach of all time. So I agreed with it. We all discussed it that we'd come on and kind of share the wheel, for the year. And that is a difficult deal, and I think what happened, we didn't fully define, if I could go back and do it again, I would have taken the year to shut up, watch, and learn, to be honest. I just thought of there's so much I did learn from Paul, but there was probably a lot I left on the table too, because of my own ego.
Right.
The best way to say it is that, he'd been doing it longer than me. He's doing it better than me. And just had so much to learn from it. And I learned a ton, but we kind of went back and forth, and it's kind of silly, throughout the season where, some events I would call the plays and he would assist, and other events he would call the plays and I would assist. And it was just kind of a mess of a year. It really was. A lot of positive things too, but it just kind of ran so much early. And I think towards the end of the year, we finally had it clicking.
Found the groove,
and it kind of got to where, I might have been calling the plays and the lines and whatnot, and doing those types of the coaching duties. Yeah. But Paul was a master at motivating guys and mentally positioning them, and I would say still better than I am now at building that confidence in guys, and just kind of explaining to them that if Paul said something to you and explained and you bought in, it's almost like he could will you to believe that you could shoot people and you would go do it, that you could do it.
Yep.
And it was really, really awesome to watch him do that. And so, he focused on that. He really, gave me advice on what to do, what plays to call, those types of things. And we had something really beautiful going. And we went into that World Cup in 2013. And, through the efforts of everybody, we won that World Cup. And it was a really beautiful moment. And I think it was just it was great. And it was the last tournament Paul coached before he passed. And it was just awesome for him to win another World Cup.
Absolutely.
So it was great. And but yeah, so, and from that point on, it's just been a growing curve. I feel like now, I don't know exactly when it completely switched where, I would say the team has, full confidence in me now. And it's probably been that way for multiple seasons.
Right.
And I'm not perfect by any means. I think they're confident knowing that I am doing everything I can. And sometimes I'm right. Sometimes, I'm wrong. It's just the fact of coaching. But I think they're confident in my abilities. But that took, 3-4 seasons to get to the point where that's not really a question. And I think but I had to get to that level of playing. It's just coaching is something that you just have to know those scenarios, and you have to do your homework and put in the work and be humble enough to know that, that you're not always right. And I think
Right.
at the pro level, I think I see that a lot in some other coaches, that it seems like they I know best mentality all the time. And I think that causes a lot of friction, and a lot of mistakes are made from that. And it's being able to take opinions from all your players and kind of mold your game plan from those opinions. And sometimes you got to put your foot down, and I do it often, and say, hey, like, no, this is what we're doing. Especially in our team, I got a lot of elite players that all have great ideas, but they're not always the same ideas. And so you got to get everyone on one path, and there's got to be buy-in. And sometimes we just never fully come to terms and to an agreement, but someone's got to say, hey, this is what we're doing, or, and this is what it is.
It's so interesting because my team had a meeting today and basically discussed that exact thing, because this is our first season together. We have one event under our belts together. There's still guys trying to decide, does he know what he's talking about? Is the game too, past him by? And others that say, nope, he knows what he's talking about. And it's that give and take, and that learning, that building, as opposed to some of my peers run in and demand respect. These guys have told me, we don't know you. So now I have to earn their trust as opposed to demand it. And it's a process.
Yes. And definitely. And it is, and I think that's, someone's got to coach. That's a fact. It's like someone's got to do it. Teams that try to player coach, like that's a massive error.
Yep.
And it's just kind of, but even if a coach is making the wrong decision, it's better than no decision. So it's just,
that's true.
You can play through the wrong decision. You can't play through five guys doing, whatever they think they're doing at the time or on the fly. So yeah, I agree that it's got to be earned, and it's got to just through hard work. There's things you can do as a coach of just gathering knowledge as the tournament goes on that players either just don't have the opportunity to do, because a lot of it they're playing at the same time, or mentally probably shouldn't be doing because it's going to burn them up. That's I watch the Jackson brothers do this, and they're great players. I don't mind. They're aware of this, but they are tasked with doing a lot, and they scout all the games. And so the Jackson brothers are there in the pits, but kind of half in the shade. Sometimes it's sun, just standing there watching every game, because they're kind of tasked to make their game plans.
Yep.
And with Paulie's helping them, but they take it on themselves to scout.
Yep.
And they are better for it on the field. I guarantee you are, because if you sit there and you watch everything, you'll be better as a player.
Yep.
Until they're exhausted. And that's the thing. And I think that might be something that burns them out, and why AC burns out in certain tournaments and hasn't won yet, even though they're, a fantastic team, is because I think they're taking on too many of those tasks of trying to player coach a little bit too much.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that job kind of needs to be fully handed off, and players got to play and put in their input, and put in all that input, and let the coach make that call. But if you're trying to do a little bit too much as a player, then it's mentally taxing. It is. And
it's exhausting.
It's exhausting. It is. And to be honest, like, I'm even in a better, like, I'm in a very place of luxury now, because I used to go as a coach from game one to play my games, last games. And I'd be at the field all day. I'd be in the pit. I'd map out every single breakout. You need to at the pro level. You have to have it. And it would be exhausting. And I would get, I'm sure mentally in some matches, I wouldn't be fully capable because I wasn't rested.
Right.
So towards the end of last year, we brought in Jerry Van Cleve,
Mm-hmm.
and to help me out with the scouting, and it's been wonderful. It just is. It's, I still scout. I sit there with Jerry, but I'm not there for every single game. And
Right.
everyone's Jerry's all about on his own, and he's a fantastic scout. Period. So the stuff he's scouting is better than what I could do myself. But now that once I've had that in position, now when I go into games, I'm as rested as I feel like I need to be. As far as I scout some games. Yeah, I watch them all. So like the early games, I watch on Go Sports.
Yep.
Stay in the shade. Usually 1 or 2 of those, and then I'll head to the field. I'll sit with Jerry for a couple hours, and then the match right before we play, I'm with the team and I'm delivering the scout. I'm doing the meetings, all that kind of stuff.
Yep.
Before I had Jerry, I wouldn't have scout for those matches. So now I got Jerry there, so we have scouts on everybody every single game.
Right.
So I'm no longer having to pick and choose. So it's been a huge help. Jerry started scouting for me in Chicago last year, or Philly last year. We won. He fully came over the team for the next event. We won. So it's just been a good a good system. I think having a 2-coach system at some capacity is it's a benefit if you can work together and figure out how to this is your job, this is my job, this is what I need from you. I do think there needs to be some level of kind of hierarchy there.
Absolutely.
And I think Dave and Bart have proved it for years with Impact, that if you have 2 strong-minded guys that know their roles and are both capable coaches, you have an advantage.
Right.
Options as well. There's a reason now that a lot of the best teams have multiple capable coaches. It's because the sport is coaching matters. It just does.
Yep.
Just like any other sport, coaching matters. And if you don't, some of those teams on the lower end, I think they have more often than not inexperienced coaches. And it's you can win games and you can lose games as a coach. And you need good players, and you need players for, I've never won a game all by myself. As a
right.
coach. Never have, right?
Right.
But I've lost games for our team, and
Yep.
I've won games for our team too. It's just, you gotta, it's an important, part of the sport, and especially the format that we play now. So I think that, it should be, teams should really consider, what they have going on there, and trying to find someone, get them in the right position, and take care of those guys. And coaching isn't fun, like it's fun, but it's not as fun as playing. It's
Right.
kind of like, it just isn't. And I think players need to understand that. They need to understand that they need a coach, like if they want to win, like they do, and they need to understand that the coach isn't there. Sometimes I see coaches not being treated the way they should be by their players, be it a lack of respect or even the same respect of a player. The person is there, watching people play paintball. He's not playing paintball. And I think we all can know and agree that playing paintball is really, really fun.
Right.
So there's lots of coaches in the league, I'm sure, that are paying their own money to fly somewhere and coach guys, playing paintball. And I think those teams should really recognize that, and make sure that they're doing what they can for their coach. And teams that maybe aren't happy with their coach, they maybe should start thinking about, pooling some money together and getting themselves a good coach, or making that coach that can't afford to fly anymore, that maybe they should pitch in and get them a flight or something, because it's very important. I would say that a coach has his hand in every single point,
Right.
and that's kind of one of the things when I did come back in 2011 to start coaching. Part of me thought about, once I realized that it was a full investment, I was going to be at all the practices.
Right.
Actually more of an investment, because I guarantee you, Rainey's a freak. So he might spend more time on paintball than anybody, but for the rest of the team, I probably spend more time invested on paintball than any of them as a coach. And so I thought about, well, maybe I should just play. I should come back and play. And I think what kind of, do I want to come back and I've been off for a couple of years and try to climb back up and maybe get to play, no question, struggle, or as a coach, I can be involved in every single point. And at the time that was pretty compelling to me that, I could, all my effort would be shown out there, for better or for worse.
Right. And that's, it's one of those things that probably is a great reason, or a big reason, why you enjoy the classic format so much, because of that, going back to that 10-man roots that you have, where it's like 7-man, but a little bit more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah,
I love the classic format, and it's one of those I started playing tournaments, national events as 10-man, and then and then when we were playing 7-man X-ball, I loved 7-man a lot more. So, and just going even back further, I spent a couple of years just playing rec ball in the woods, and so getting back, and I never played a tournament in the woods until I played my first classic event. But we actually had one in Texas before the boom, so this was 2010. I think we had a mech classic event, and it was before they thought of 5 by 5.5. So what it was is that you could have an electronic gun or electronic loader is how they did it.
Okay.
So everyone shot, for the most part, autocockers, so you could have an electronic loader.
Yep.
So I had a blast. I played with Addicted back then in 2010, and then I did the Tex mech that you were a part of, and was that 2 years ago, 3 years ago?
Yeah. I think it was 12. So 18, something like that. Yeah.
That was a blast. And played with Addicted there, and then it was coming up on ICC, not too long after that, and so I had so much fun, and just kind of, that was my first time really, playing, an event again, and so we got together to take the team over there for that second ICC, and just had a freaking blast, and we won that. I think at that point, I think I realized I was pretty good, so,
right.
Yeah.
Right.
And it just, I was kind of surprised that, I think it was just kind of, I had, for some reason, progressed with paintball mentally, that I think it kind of caught up for the fact that I wasn't playing as much, that I kind of I was more of a mental developed player than I was back when I was. And so, and a mechanical gun is kind of an equalizer there on the gun skills a little bit too. And so it's just, it becomes a little bit more of a chess match, I think, now, and the Mac 10-man. And it was just so much fun. And so, yeah, I love it. And then, once when the ICP, I kind of just, I wanted to play as much as I could at that point. And the ICPL came around, and they had their roster, limitations on APPA points for how many, professional players you have. And so we wanted to play as Xfactor. And so I tried to fight that fight online for a little bit, that we shouldn't have this restriction in place, because if you're going to call it a professional league, you should allow
professionals
to be open, right? But I understand it, why they, I'm glad, I honestly, how it turned out now, but why they did it the way they did, and try to kind of make it not too overpowered by any one team. But as we've shown, at the ICC where it's open, there's teams that old school guys can go very far, but, so I spoke with Infamous, and talked to Travis, and they were going to, put a team in and try to, within the rules, and, Travis is, over 40, so he doesn't count, and, guys, and got to, I went over there, and And I'm just having so much fun, playing with Infamous, and the personalities over there. I mean, we mix it in with a couple other Xfactor guys here and there.
Yep. It was a good blend.
Yeah, it's a good blend, and I get to play with Crystal Soya, who was
Right.
to me growing up, and so that's and he's just like the funniest person ever, But
Right.
it's definitely super cool to get to play with some of these old school legends, and pick their brains. And there's and just watching Chris, who's like definitely not athletically at his prime.
Right. Right.
Just him hobbling around the field, on one leg practically, seeing some of the stuff that he can pull off still, because you just
sheer will.
Yeah, sheer will, and just someone who is just that elite. You realize that you just don't what it takes to be, when he was at his prime, the mental, understanding of the game. Yes. And see it still able to play out. I feel like he could be crawling around out there in a wheelchair and still be messing people up. So
absolutely,
it's been great with Infamous. I think we're probably I guess we could say we're the best 10-man team in the world right now. I would say. I mean, we've gotten I guess there's been 3 ICPLs, and we went second, first, and we honestly should have won the first one. We just had a bit of a mathematical error.
Right.
So that whole story is a whole nother one, but
right.
But it's fun, man. I think so for ICC this year. I talked over to Alex and say, hey, what are you wanting to do, and as far as like budget and goes, and he kind of said like it wouldn't hurt my feelings if Xfactor didn't play as a team, and I said, okay, well then I'm having a blast with Infamous, so we'll just keep that rolling.
So you'll be playing with Infamous in the ICC.
Yeah,
fantastic. Billy as well.
Yeah, more than likely, yes, and probably Archie as well. So
okay.
Yeah, I think the plan is probably to go with the one that's the 10 guys we just won the ICPL with.
Yep.
And we might add another, 1 or 2 Infamous guys. We really like the formula that won that last ICPL, but want to get some of those Infamous guys over. Someone like Drew Templeton that just retired. It'd be great to get him back on the 10-man field.
Right. So. I will play this a little bit for you because this is exactly what we were talking about. This is some of the film that I shot down at the event that we had where you guys won. So it's an extremely amazing thing to watch. Some guys say that it's a slower game. I would disagree. There's slow points, but it's punctuated with pure chaos because of the amount of people on the field. And just to be able to see legends running and playing, it's a very, very special thing for me. And, a great thing that the ICPL is doing and the ICC. I couldn't be happier to be a part of it and see as much as I have with it. So that's a great thing. And if you're enjoying it, that's everybody is. The older guys that are coming back, the new and current pros are enjoying it, and people are attending in record numbers. So, I mean, that's just an amazing thing. And we have a bunch of this stuff out online. If people are interested, either on PB Nation or YouTube, you can see all that. But what I want to do, Ryan, is I want to give you a chance to thank anybody. And everybody always says there's way too many people to thank, and it's kind of part of the process. But maybe the people that don't normally get thanked, I'd like you to have a chance to give a shout out to anyone who falls in that category.
Okay, thank you. Yeah. I will thank the one that always gets thanked by all of us first, even though that's probably the opposite, but Alex Martinez. He does so much for all of us, and Texas paintball and paintball in general. But what he's done for all of us is it goes far outside of paintball, just kind of the foundation in our lives as a secondary father figure to all of us.
Yes.
I can't ever thank anyone without thanking him.
Yep.
And then from there, it's just, really it's like, things people don't normally get, thanked as much as like my parents were so supportive of me playing this sport. And, it's fine. They still fly to tournaments and drive in their RV to watch me coach. I'm not even playing.
That's fantastic.
But they used to fly to all the tournaments with the team, and they would bring snacks, for 15 guys, and just show up with snacks. And we have a couple, meters parents are at all of our tournaments. A lot of the guys' parents are still just, supportive of us. But, growing up, that's, once I, started playing national events, I guess I've been lucky enough to not have to pay for paintball that entire time. But up until that point, and don't get me wrong, I worked, jobs, refed at fields. I did everything you would have to do to pay, for paintball. But my parents still, anytime there was a flight, to an event or something I couldn't afford, or something, or a tournament entry fee I could, they're always there for me. So I really appreciate that, and I was blessed. And I know some people aren't in that situation, and so I don't take that for granted at all. And the one now that is huge for me is my wife, and for allowing me to do this still. And I think it's a lot. I have young kids, and it's it's hard, to have a young kid and have to, hell, when she goes out of town for work, she travels a little bit now. I'm taking my hair out after about 22. So, she doesn't give me grief about paintball. And yes, I make money doing this, and so that helps. But honestly, I think if I didn't, she would still, maybe not as much as I do now, but she would still, she's one of the good ones, And I think
she understands that it's a passion of yours, and it helps bring balance to your life.
Yeah, and we have lost, and it's just part of growing up and getting older and moving on to career. But we've lost players, long-term players on our team due to wives and stuff. And I understand it from both sides. It's just the fact. But if paintball is something that you want to do, and it's your passion in life, I think you should hold on to that, and you should find a partner that, if you can, that supports you in that. And I think Colt Roberts says this. I guess he told this to his wife, his wonderful wife Desiree. But I think he said, paintball was here long before you, and it'll be here long after you if you choose it to be that way. Is what it says. But it is it's important, and I'm very appreciative of my wife. And if I would give that advice to people, that if I feel everyone should have a hobby. And paintball does take a lot of time and a lot of money and all those sorts of things. But if it is something that you do not want to give up, I would have that long conversation with someone, that you're thinking about maybe popping the question to, and laying the ground rules out there.
Yep. Absolutely.
And then after that, I'd like to, I'm very happy that I came back to paintball. Extremely happy. Probably doubly as happy now that I'm getting to play in the 10-mans as well now. And I think I'd like to, really thank Archie Montemayor for bringing me back in. Because honestly, without him, I mean, who knows? I don't know if someone else would have reached out from the team, but I love Grayson. We lived together for the entire time that I'm talking about. We lived together from 2005 to 2014. It was Archie who kind of reached out and drug me back in. So I don't know if I've ever fully thanked him for that, and I probably should, but that's I don't know. I probably wouldn't be here. I'd probably be miserable doing something else.
Well, you just did.
Yeah,
you just did.
Yeah. Well, our sponsors, JT. It's been awesome to kind of see that brand come back and be a big part of it coming back to the limelight. The GI Sports and great paint, but it's been really cool to kind of take that JT brand. That was kind of a call, an ask that we wanted to be that JT team, and we wanted to kind of we love the product, we love the old school and the kind of legacy, and we wanted to be part of that legacy. And it just so happens that the team started clicking a little bit more once we strapped that stuff on, and it's cool. So, and Planet Eclipse, I don't know if people know this, but yeah, we've been with them since 2006. We've never, and before 2006, XFactor never had a gun sponsor. We all shot whatever.
Yep.
So the entire career of XFactor, we've only had one gun sponsor, and we've never really thought of needing another. Yeah, yep. It's just the guns, they just work. You know, I know that there's other, you know, at the top end, there's a lot of great guns. They all shoot great. I would say that where Eclipse just gets the edge, and I would find it hard for someone to dispute me on this, is they just keep working. That as far as maintenance goes, you know, it's the best. And, you know, when you're, for some reason, it likes to rain at most of these paintball tournaments. And if you're diving in a puddle in the finals, I think you would be a little bit crazy to not want to have an Eclipse gun in your hands. So to shoot. Yeah. So, yeah. So that's it, man. I think that's, I'm sure I mean, there's a million people I can thank, but
right. Absolutely. And actually there's always this, subtle reason on why I do that, because whenever you get off of this and people start watching it, they'll say, hey, you didn't thank me. And then you'll say, hey, I didn't thank so-and-so. And I say, come back, bring some other guys, and, you know, we'll do it again. And, you know, it was really important to me. You were on my short list of guys that I didn't know your story exactly, but I needed to, and I wanted to, because I respect you. And, you know, just from our exchanges over the years, and it's, again, I want to thank you for taking time out tonight to sit and talk with me, and, you know, educate the people and give something back to the community, because people have been saying that these interviews and talk shows have been helping them. So that's really all I'm trying to do, is give some kind of positive and maybe educate, have somebody connect with you on some kind of level and say, hey, if he can do it, I can do it. So I'm going to go out and do it. And that's a great thing. So I want to thank you for that.
Well, thank you. This is great. I've watched some of the other shows, and they've been really, a lot of them have been really interesting.
Yeah.
The ones that Jeremy saw, that was some painful history that went down that has not spoken about often, talked about often, not heard from the horse's mouth much at all. So.
Exactly. And it was the actual creation of, it was the first show that we did, and what actually made it into Paintball Therapy, because I just thought Jeremy was just on the couch and bearing his soul. And I've known Jeremy for a long time, and I respect his openness. Mm-hmm. You know, he might ruffle some feathers and piss off some people. I believe he loves pushing buttons. Mm-hmm. But you know, it's Jeremy, and I wouldn't change him. So Ryan, I want to again thank you for the time tonight, and hopefully we can do this again. Maybe have some of the other team guys on if you want to. And I can't thank you enough. I can't thank you enough.
Thank you. I enjoyed it.
Yep, absolutely. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful night.
You too.
Thank you. Whoa. That was time with Ryan. I learned so much from that conversation. It was definitely a learning experience, and you can take a lot away from that with not just paintball, but with life. So I want to thank everyone for tuning in, and have a wonderful day. And when we get through this together, make sure you run to your paintball fields and enjoy some time outside. Thank you.